Every voice around you is a parasite. Every opinion, every judgment, every unsolicited piece of advice, all of it is designed to chain you to a life of hesitation and self-doubt. Machiavelli understood one brutal truth. People don't want you to rise. They want you predictable, controllable, and harmless. So they build prisons inside your mind using nothing but their words. And the tragedy? Most people walk willingly into those prisons. They surrender their confidence for approval. They trade their ambition for validation. They give up their destiny just to avoid disappointing strangers. But a powerful person, a true Machiavellian, sees the world differently. He realizes that the greatest threat to his success is not failure, not competition, not even enemies. It's noise. Noise from people who don't understand his mission. Noise from the weak who secretly fear his potential. Noise from the insecure who need him to remain small so they can feel big. This video will reveal the one shift that erases self-doubt permanently. You stop letting the world speak inside your mind. Not by fighting them, but by becoming mentally untouchable. A mind they can't enter, and a force they can't weaken. Self-doubt doesn't begin the day you fail. It begins the day someone convinces you that you could fail. People assume insecurity comes from weakness. Machiavelli knew better. Insecurity is manufactured, constructed, injected. It is a weapon the world uses long before you ever realize you're a target. Think back. Your earliest fears didn't come from you. They came from someone else's mouth. Someone's criticism, someone's disappointment, someone's disbelief. A single moment where you were made to feel too much or not enough. And without noticing, your mind built a rule from it. Be careful. Don't aim too high. Stay where it's safe. That's where self-doubt is born, not in failure, but in observation. You watched people react to you, and you began shaping yourself around their reactions, not because you wanted approval, but because your brain is wired to minimize danger. And judgment feels like danger. The world knows this. The weak know it instinctively. It's why they target your certainty instead of your ability. They don't attack the sword. They dull the hand that wields it. If someone wanted to break you, truly break you, they wouldn't need to fight you. They would just need to convince you to fight yourself. Convince you that caution is maturity. Convince you that doubt is wisdom. Convince you that shrinking is intelligence. And before long, you live inside a mental maze they designed. Machiavelli warned that the easiest subjects to rule are the ones who police themselves. In modern terms, the easiest person to control is the person whose confidence you've poisoned. That's why people comment. That's why they advise. That's why they judge your decisions, mock your ambition, laugh at your goals. It's not because they're honest. It's because your courage threatens their inertia. Your hunger exposes their comfort. Your potential exposes their inadequacy. So they level the playing field the only way they can, by dragging your belief in yourself down to their level. Every, "Are you sure?" Every, "You can't do that." Every, "Be realistic." These are not statements. They are infections. Subtle injections telling your mind to hesitate, to second-guess, to consider limits that were never yours. And once the seed is planted, the world steps back. You do the rest. You replay their doubts until they sound like your own voice. You hesitate before you move. You ask permission before you act. You look for signs, approval, reassurance, anything that keeps you from standing on your own certainty. This is the psychological trap you've been caught in. Not because you are weak, but because you were trained to distrust your own instincts. And here's the Machiavellian truth that most people will never accept. Your self-doubt is not a flaw. It is a memory. A memory of someone else's fear that you adopted as your identity. Now understand what this means. If your insecurity was built, it can be destroyed. If it was installed, it can be uninstalled. If it was learned, it can be unlearned. But the first step, the most brutal step, is this. You must stop listening. Not slowly, not gently, immediately. Because every second you entertain the opinions of people who don't live your life, don't understand your mission, and don't carry your burdens, you delay your own liberation. They don't need to speak loudly anymore. Your mind echoes their old whispers on its own. But a true Machiavellian recognizes the source of the voice and kills it. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with indifference. Indifference is how the spell breaks. Indifference is how the conditioning collapses. Indifference is how you stop the world from using your own mind against you. Once you understand that self-doubt was manufactured, the next step is even darker. You must identify the saboteur living inside your own mind. Most people think their self-doubt is emotional. It isn't. It's strategic. Your brain created a counterfeit version of you. A cautious, hesitant, permission-seeking replica whose job is simple. Prevent risks. Prevent exposure. Prevent embarrassment. This version of you is not your enemy, but it was designed by your enemy. And here's the psychological twist. Your inner saboteur doesn't fight you with fear. It fights you with logic. It whispers, "Be smart. Wait. Not now. Maybe later. You're not ready." These thoughts feel intelligent, but they're nothing more than well-trained hesitation patterns. A mental guard dog that bites you every time you try to escape the cage you were raised in. Machiavelli would call this a self-imposed governor, a psychological mechanism that ensures you never exceed the expectations others placed on you. But a powerful person sees it for what it is, a parasite running a script. And like any script, it can be overwritten. Step 1. Confront the inner voice as an opponent. Stop treating your self-doubt as part of your identity. It is not you. It is an internalized echo of other people's limitations. You must talk to it as if it were a separate entity. Whose fear are you repeating? Who does this voice sound like? Who trained me to doubt myself this way? Every time you ask these questions, the illusion cracks. You begin to see the architecture of the prison, instead of blaming yourself for being inside it. Your saboteur loses power the moment you recognize it is foreign. Step 2. Attack the voice with evidence, not emotion. You don't silence self-doubt by feeling confident. That's temporary. That fades. You silence it by proving it wrong repeatedly, until it collapses under its own inaccuracy. You act before you feel ready. You move before you have certainty. You take steps the voice says you shouldn't take. Because nothing dismantles a false identity faster than actions it cannot explain. When you move decisively, your inner saboteur panics. Its predictions fail. Its warnings prove false. Its authority dissolves. This is Machiavellian psychology. Power does not come from believing in yourself. Power comes from overruling yourself. Step 3. Embrace silence as a weapon. Remember this clearly. Self-doubt gains strength through noise, people's opinions, your own overthinking, external expectations, the pressure to be validated. All of it creates a constant psychic chatter. But when you deliberately choose silence, something transformative happens. You hear your own instincts again. Not the voice of childhood conditioning, not the voice of societal fear, not the voice of people who never lived your life, but the voice that has been buried underneath all the noise you've mistaken for truth. Silence reconnects you to your original signal, and that signal is ruthless, ambitious, and unafraid. This is why Machiavellian leaders often appear cold or detached. They are not emotional walls. They are men who refuse to let the world contaminate their inner voice. Step 4. Break the mind's loyalty to external approval. Here is the psychological chokehold most people never escape. Your mind is loyal to the people who hurt you, the very people who criticized you, doubted you, mocked you. Your brain still seeks their imaginary approval out of old habit. This is why you hesitate. This is why you question yourself. This is why you replay their opinions even when they're not present. Your mind wants to avoid re-experiencing the original pain. So it behaves obediently, staying small to prevent further attack. The Machiavellian method is simple. Destroy that loyalty. Ask yourself, why does their opinion deserve space in my mind? Who made them the judge of my life? What have they achieved that grants them authority over me? Their imaginary power evaporates instantly. You reclaim the throne inside your mind. Step 5. Replace the saboteur with the strategist. Once the parasite is weakened, you must replace it with something stronger. A strategist. A colder, clearer, more calculated version of yourself whose authority is unquestioned. This strategist does not ask, "What if I fail?" He asks, "What is the cost of hesitation?" He does not seek approval, he seeks momentum. He does not fear judgment, he fears wasted potential. When this version of you becomes dominant, self-doubt cannot survive. It becomes irrelevant, a faint echo behind a reinforced mental fortress. Everything changes the moment you understand this. Self-doubt survives only when you respond to it. It needs your attention the way fire needs oxygen. Once you stop feeding it, it dies. This is where Machiavelli's most misunderstood principle becomes your weapon. Strategic indifference. Not apathy, not laziness, not pretending you don't care. Indifference is control. A deliberate refusal to allow anything, opinion, judgment, doubt, to alter your direction. To the outside world, indifference looks cold. To you, it becomes liberation. Because the less you react, the less you can be controlled. The first shift. You stop negotiating with noise. Every weak person wastes their life negotiating with noise. Other people's expectations, opinions, insecurities, fears. They ask, what will they think? Will they approve? Do I look stupid? Is this too risky? A Machiavellian asks a different question. Do their opinions build my future? If the answer is no, the reaction is simple. Silence. You stop explaining. You stop defending. You stop seeking validation. You make decisions without announcing them. You move without permission. You grow without applause. This is psychological warfare. You deny the world the one thing it needs to control you. Your response. The second shift. Your emotional temperature drops. A person can only be manipulated through emotion. Anger, fear, guilt, shame, embarrassment. These are the strings that move the puppet. But when your emotional temperature drops, when you approach the world with the calm of a surgeon and the coldness of a strategist, manipulation loses its effect. People can try to provoke you, pressure you, intimidate you, guilt trip you. But your reaction is always the same. Neutral, unmoved, untouchable. This terrifies people. Because once they can't trigger you, they can't influence you. Machiavelli understood that the most powerful leader is not the loudest, but the one whose emotions cannot be accessed. You become that leader the moment you decide, no one gets to touch my inner world. The third shift. You become psychologically invisible. Weak people leak information. doubts, fears, insecurities, desires, and the world uses that information to control them. But when you adopt strategic indifference, you become psychologically invisible. People no longer know what you fear, what you want, what you're planning, what affects you. This invisibility gives you tactical superiority. They can't predict your moves. They can't anticipate your reactions. They can't locate your weaknesses. And people fear what they cannot read. This is how kings moved. This is how Machiavelli taught rulers to operate. Never reveal your inner landscape. Let the world guess, and let them guess wrong. The fourth shift. Your self-belief becomes internal, not external. Before, you relied on the world to confirm your worth, likes, praise, validation, approval, support. This made you fragile, because anything external can be taken away. Strategic indifference rewrites the source of your confidence. Your self-belief becomes self-generated. You trust yourself because you act. You act because you're capable. You're capable because you move forward without waiting for certainty. You no longer ask, "Do they believe in me?" You tell yourself, "I don't need them to." At this point, self-doubt cannot enter. Not because you fight it, but because there is no doorway left for it to walk through. The final shift. You become a person the world cannot influence. This is the end game. Most people are pulled by the world like marionettes. One insult pulls them down. One compliment pulls them up. One opinion reroutes their entire life. But strategic indifference cuts the strings. Your direction becomes non-negotiable. Your identity becomes self-defined. Your ambition becomes immune to judgment. Your mindset becomes unbreakable. You do not rise with applause. You do not fall with criticism. You move with purpose, cold, precise, unaffected. This is what makes you dangerous. You are no longer shaped by the world. You shape yourself. When a person reaches this level, self-doubt doesn't just disappear. It becomes impossible. Most people never rise because they're trapped in a loop of waiting. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect level of confidence. They wait for someone to tell them it's okay to move. That waiting becomes their destiny. And the world knows it, because the world trained them to wait. From childhood, you were taught to seek permission, to ask before acting, to make sure others approved before you took a single step. That conditioning didn't disappear when you grew up. It simply matured into a quieter, more polished form of hesitation. The belief that every decision must be justified, explained, validated, sanitized by someone else's approval. This is the psychological leash that keeps people obedient. Machiavelli warned that the crowd is slow to move, fearful to act, and addicted to safety. Anyone waiting for permission from them is doomed to die in place. The powerful understand this instinctively. They move first. They decide without consensus. They act before they feel ready, because they know readiness is a myth, an illusion created to keep ambitious minds restrained. Announcing your plans is the fastest way to kill them. Weak people reveal their intentions because they want applause before they even begin. They want reassurance, sympathy, pre-approval. But every time you tell someone what you're about to do, you invite resistance. You invite their doubts, their insecurities, their warnings delivered from the comfortable sidelines. The Machiavellian path is quieter. You move silently, not out of fear, but out of strategy. Silence protects you. It keeps the world blind, unable to interfere before your momentum becomes unstoppable. You were told you're not ready. You believed it. But ready according to whom? The people who never tried anything. The critics who never risked anything. The truth is brutal. Readiness is built through action, not preparation. Your mind won't give you permission because it's still operating from old programming. Programming designed to keep you safe, small, and predictable. If you wait for confidence before acting, you will die waiting. Confidence doesn't precede action. It grows because of action. Every time you move while doubting yourself, you weaken the old identity that kept you frozen. Every time you hesitate, you strengthen it. Weak people run from pressure. Powerful people walk directly into it. Not because they enjoy discomfort, but because they understand something the average mind never realizes. Pressure is the only environment where transformation occurs. Without pressure, there is no urgency. Without urgency, there is no evolution. Machiavelli believed that a mind protected from challenge becomes fragile. A mind exposed to pressure becomes undefeatable. When you step toward what intimidates you, you tear away the cage your old identity built around you. Explaining your ambition is another trap. The moment you justify your plans, you surrender them to the interpretation of others. You hand them the authority to approve, disapprove, or dismantle your direction. The powerful do not explain. They execute. They let results speak because results cannot be debated. When you stop explaining, your ambition sharpens. Your direction becomes yours again. You stop bending to opinions that do not matter and expectations that were never yours to satisfy. Momentum is your final weapon. A slow-moving person is easy to interrupt. A hesitant person is easy to influence. A stagnant person is easy to control. But when you move fast, quietly, decisively, without ceremony, something incredible happens. Doubt cannot keep up. Fear cannot block you. People cannot interfere because you're already 10 steps ahead before they even realize you've moved. Machiavelli taught that a leader must strike before others have time to respond. In your life, this translates to one rule: never give doubt a window to enter. A person who moves without permission becomes untouchable. You stop waiting for signs. You stop seeking approval. You stop negotiating with the hesitation trained into you since childhood. You act, not because you feel ready, but because you refuse to let your potential rot inside your mind. Every step you take becomes its own permission. Every move becomes its own validation. Every result becomes its own explanation. And as you move like this, silent, decisive, unstoppable, the world that once controlled you through hesitation will begin to fear you. Because nothing terrifies people more than someone who no longer needs their approval to rise. There comes a moment in every powerful person's life when they realize the world is no longer fighting them directly. It's fighting them internally. Not with enemies, not with obstacles, not with physical barriers, but with subtle attempts to reclaim influence over their mind. The world doesn't like individuals who move without permission. It doesn't like people who think independently, act independently, and rise independently. So it turns to its last strategy: psychological sabotage. You will notice it the moment you begin changing. People who never cared before suddenly have opinions about your life. People who never advised you now pretend to be experts. People who never supported you now warn you about risks. They will never say they're intimidated. They'll never admit they feel threatened. They simply wrap their insecurity in concern and present it to you as wisdom. This is not guidance. It is an attempt to pull you back into the cage you escaped. And here's the darker truth: they don't even know they're doing it. Their minds are programmed by the same system you just broke free from. A system that fears anyone who stops obeying invisible rules. A system that thrives when you hesitate and collapses when you act. When you stop asking for permission, you expose the control mechanisms everyone else is still trapped in. Your freedom becomes their discomfort. This is why many powerful people walk alone, not because they dislike company, but because the average mind becomes a liability when you refuse to shrink. People will misinterpret your silence. They'll mistake your distance for arrogance. They'll call your focus cold, your discipline obsession, your independence selfishness. They need labels to protect their pride. Because if they admit the truth, that you simply evolved beyond their limitations, they would have to confront the fact that they could have evolved too. So understand this clearly. The higher you rise, the quieter the world around you must become. Not because you isolate yourself out of bitterness, but because noise becomes the enemy of clarity. Every pointless conversation drains energy. Every irrelevant opinion clouds judgment. Every unnecessary attachment weakens momentum. The person who tries to please everyone becomes owned by everyone. The person who ignores the world becomes owned by no one. This is where the Machiavellian principle of selective awareness becomes your shield. You stop absorbing information from sources that have no authority in your life. You stop reacting to criticism from people who haven't built anything themselves. You stop giving emotional access to individuals who wouldn't survive a day inside your head. You begin filtering ruthlessly, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Because your mind is a battlefield, and not everyone deserves a seat in the war room. The more indifferent you become, the more powerful your presence grows. People sense something different about you. A calm that isn't normal. A silence that isn't passive. A confidence that doesn't ask for recognition. Your lack of reaction becomes its own form of dominance. Your refusal to engage becomes its own form of strength. Most people need to announce their importance. Your importance announces itself through your behavior. And here is the most Machiavellian transformation of all. You stop being influenced by the world, and the world starts being influenced by you. Your movements create tension. Your decisions create reactions. Your progress creates whispers. People study you, imitate you, speculate about you. Because they cannot read you, cannot predict you, cannot control you. You become a psychological force, not just a physical one. The final stage is simple but rare. You belong fully to yourself. Not to your past, not to your insecurities, not to the expectations that once shaped you. You walk with a mind that no longer apologizes for its ambition. You pursue goals without broadcasting them. You carry discipline without displaying it. You operate with a level of focus that makes doubt irrelevant. By this point, self-doubt doesn't merely weaken, it becomes impossible. You've trained your mind to bypass hesitation, ignore noise, and move with precision. You've turned your silence into armor, and your indifference into strategy. You've become someone who cannot be slowed by opinions, controlled by judgments, or redirected by fear. You have detached from the world, but not from your mission. And that is the point most people never reach. There is a stage of psychological evolution where people can no longer touch you. Not emotionally, not mentally, not strategically. It is the stage where you stop absorbing the world and force the world to absorb you. Most never reach this point because they remain addicted to reassurance, drama, attention, or connection. They need the world to validate their identity. You are not allowed to be that person anymore. The moment you become unreachable, the rules of life change. People can no longer guilt you, because guilt requires access. They can't shame you, because shame requires internal permission. They can't manipulate you, because manipulation requires openings. Openings you no longer give. You become a closed system, self-sustaining, self-governing, self-directing. And nothing terrifies people more than someone who doesn't need anything from them. The world thrives on reaction. That's why people provoke you, question you, mock you, contradict you. They want to see where your emotional borders are. They want to map your triggers, your weaknesses, your attachments. They want to know what controls you. Once they discover it, they own you. But when you no longer react, you deny them the only tool they have. Your silence becomes a mirror that forces them to face themselves. And most people cannot stand what they see. You must understand something essential. Distance is power. Emotional distance gives you clarity. Social distance gives you control. Psychological distance gives you leverage. When you stop giving instant responses, instant explanations, instant emotions, people become unsettled. They start adjusting themselves around you. Instead of expecting you to adjust to them, you shift from follower to force. When you become unreachable, you stop being predictable. And unpredictability is one of the purest forms of power. The world cannot anticipate your next move. They don't know what affects you, what motivates you, what angers you, or what excites you. They cannot read you. They cannot categorize you. They cannot place you into a mental box. And when people can't define you, they fear you. Because undefined people cannot be controlled. Most people throw their power away by explaining themselves. Every explanation is an opening. Every justification is a confession. Every emotional reaction is a map. The moment you explain why you don't do something, you hand someone the key to manipulate you later. The moment you reveal why something hurt, you expose your pressure points. The moment you justify a decision, you allow others to question it. The powerful do not justify. They decide. Becoming unreachable doesn't mean isolating yourself from the world. It means isolating your mind from influence. You can be around people while being entirely inaccessible to their opinions. You can speak to them while giving them nothing they can use. You can listen without absorbing. You can engage without surrendering. You interact with the world on your terms, not theirs. And here is the brutal truth. Once you master being unreachable, you stop losing energy. You stop bleeding time on pointless confrontations, pointless conversations, pointless emotions. You stop running mental simulations of how others perceive you. You stop bending to expectations that don't matter. Your mind becomes a closed fortress, impenetrable, silent, unfazed. People will say you've changed, and they're right. You changed from being accessible to being sovereign. You changed from being manipulated to being respected. You changed from reacting to deciding. Weak people will resent it, but powerful people will recognize it instantly. They will see what you've become, someone who belongs only to themselves. This is the stage very few reach. Because to be unreachable, you must give up your dependency on the world's approval. And dependency is the addiction most people never overcome. But once you break it, you gain something far greater than approval. You gain mastery, total psychological autonomy, the kind Machiavelli understood, the kind very few can ever touch. And once you reach that level, self-doubt is no longer something you fight. It is something beneath you. There is a level of transformation so deep that you no longer recognize the person you once were. Not because you lost yourself, but because you finally became yourself. The hesitation is gone. The noise is irrelevant. The opinions that once held weight now feel like distant echoes from a world you outgrew. This is the final stage of power, the stage where self-doubt doesn't simply disappear. It becomes impossible, because at this level, you no longer ask who you should be. You decide who you will be. Your direction is no longer shaped by approval. Your identity is no longer shaped by environment. Your worth is no longer shaped by validation. You have cut every thread the world once wrapped around your mind. You have erased every internal parasite that fed on your confidence. You have walked through every stage of psychological fire and emerged untouchable. You no longer fear judgment, because judgment has no jurisdiction over you. You no longer fear rejection, because rejection cannot delay your mission. You no longer fear failure, because failure cannot rewrite your identity. A person who reaches this state becomes dangerous, not violent, not chaotic, but sovereign. A person who belongs entirely to themselves cannot be manipulated, redirected, or broken. You have reached the point where the world cannot influence you. It can only observe you. The people who doubted you will remain where you left them, circling the same conversations, repeating the same fears, defending the same insecurities. You moved forward. You elevated. You evolved beyond their understanding. And now comes the final truth. Your life is no longer a reaction. Your life is a declaration. You no longer wait for opportunities. You create them. You no longer chase validation. You embody certainty. You no longer seek permission. You operate by your own law. There is no going back from this. You have outgrown the world and risen into your own. And this is where the transformation becomes irreversible. Your silence becomes strategy. Your movements become statements. Your existence becomes evidence that self-doubt was never real, only installed. Remember this. Those who feared your potential will now fear your presence. Those who tried to control you will now whisper about your distance. Those who doubted you will now witness what you become when you stop listening. You have become the version of yourself that your old life could never contain. And now, as we end this journey, understand one final Machiavellian principle. Power is maintained through consistency, fearless action, relentless focus, unbending self-belief. Do not return to softness. Do not return to permission. Do not return to doubt. You earned this mindset. Protect it. If you're ready to keep evolving, if you want more psychological weapons, more ruthless clarity, more hard truths that the world is too fragile to speak, then stay close, because this is only the beginning of who you can become. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and step fully into the power the world never wanted you to discover. This is your evolution. Own it.